engineersrising.com, blog post, August 1st, 2018. 5 things female engineers should never do at work. Number 1, take notes. Do not volunteer to take notes for the group ever. I want to clarify what I mean by this. I'm specifically talking about large group meetings or activities where there is a designated note taker who also distributes the notes to the group. I am not talking about taking your own individual notes when you have conversations with people, which is always a good idea to document ideas. Why shouldn't you take notes for a group? Because if you do it once, you will find yourself doing it again and again. You are or will become a technical engineering expert. Neat handwriting and fast typing skills are not going to advance your career. During the hour plus you will spend after the meeting to review, spell check, get the boss's sign off, and email those notes, assuming no one has corrections that require a later revision, your peers were working on a technical project with much more visibility and importance to the boss than simply writing notes. That time adds up. Which do you think will be more impressive to your manager at the end of the week? I sent out the meeting minutes but didn't quite finish your project. Or I finished that project you requested and started on the next one. I once had a manager tell me I was excellent at documentation. Well, I'm sure it was intended as a compliment. In an office of engineers, that's not what I wanted to be known for. So unless you want that to show up on your next performance review, reconsider ever, and I do mean ever, volunteering to take notes. The only 2 exceptions I will make on this are as follows. Number 1 is if I am running the meeting. In a lot of cases, if I'm setting the agenda, I find it's a lot easier to take notes as I go, following the agenda, than having someone else take notes who doesn't have the agenda right in front of them. Number 2 is if it is explicitly requested of me. The most common cause of this for me has been when I was the most junior person in the meeting, or if my boss and I are attending a very large meeting together, and my boss asked me to take notes for both of us. I have headed off the explicit request for the large group meetings by asking who will take notes before we start. That automatically implies that it won't be me. The second thing female engineers should never do at work is office housework. Women in most offices do more office housework than men in general. It's even worse in engineering offices. Cleaning up from a lunch and learn, cleaning out the admittedly disgusting refrigerator, taking out the trash because the cleaning company didn't show up, and ordering supplies all has to be done. But not by you. Once again, don't volunteer. Often that means you'll have to put up with a mess for a while and simply pretend you don't see it. If you do find yourself volunteered or asked to do any of these things, immediately enlist the assistance of your coworkers of both genders. You can say, sure, I'll clean up after the lunch and learn. And I'd really appreciate John and Paul's help also so I can get back to that project I was working on. It will only take 5 minutes if everyone pitches in. If you are at all like me, some of this behavior is likely automatic. You will pick up things that other people leave around just as a matter of course. I grew up as the oldest of 8 children, so I understand how this can be a very ingrained behavior. Just remember that the time you are doing this is unlikely to be appreciated, and it's time that you aren't working on a meaningful project or expanding your professional network. In the 5 minutes you just spent cleaning up, you could have emailed 1 or 2 people to meet them for lunch that could give you a job in the future or otherwise expand your influence. Focus on your career goals and ignore the office mess. The number 3 thing that female engineers should never do at work is event planning. Birthday celebrations, happy hours, golf outings, and lunch and learns all require planning and are common in many engineering offices. Professional connections who know and trust you at a personal level are extremely important to building your career. So, at first glance, it seems logical and network expanding to be the office event planner. This certainly can be true if planning is minimal and or you can delegate background tasks. These are things like calling your local country club to reserve a tea time and inviting your boss or client for the afternoon. Taking 5 minutes to reserve a table for a lunch meeting that expands your professional network. Or throwing together a let's go to happy hour email. Note what all of these things have in common. They don't take a lot of time or planning on your part to put together. It's a completely different matter to actually plan an event, even a small one. Take a small birthday celebration. Even if all you are doing is a surprise cake at work, someone has to coordinate when everyone is available, pick up the cake, and get plates and utensils. Unless it's your work BFF, in which case I'd encourage you to get out of the office for celebration purposes. Your time is well spent asking an administrative person or even an intern in your office to take care of the details. No administrative staff or interns? Then may I suggest that a professional, heartfelt, and preferably handwritten happy birthday note expressing your gratitude for the recipient's professional skills on their special day is going to be more appreciated and remembered than a cake. The number 4 thing that female engineers should never do in the office is bake. Specifically, bringing baked goods that you made into the office. I personally love to bake, but if you've read my book, you will see how bringing homemade baked goods into the office can go wrong. Enough said, don't do it. And if you have no clue what I'm talking about here, because you haven't read my book, head over to the book tab at engineersrising.com to learn more. The baking story is in chapter 7. The last thing that female engineers should never do is say yes all the time. I am and have been guilty of this many times over. As women, we have been socially conditioned to say yes. We don't want to hurt someone's feelings. We don't like confrontation, and we were raised from childhood to agree with authority figures. We are also strong. We are smart and we are high achieving. Yet, we still feel a twinge of guilt anytime we say no. How does this show up at work? Responding to that late night or weekend email. Taking on that extra project to please your manager when you know you can't get it done without overtime. Rescheduling a lunchtime exercise session because a coworker or a client called you with his 3rd last-minute request this month. Working overtime for months on end without saying anything to meet deadlines. Cutting short a vacation or not taking one at all because you just have too much work to do. This has nothing to do with being a team player and everything to do with learning to set proper boundaries. The ability to set boundaries at work is a critical skill to learn as early in your career as possible. To put this another way, my youngest daughter just turned 4. Occasionally she will ask me for candy as a snack, just this one time. I almost always tell her no, but occasionally I forget the previous lessons I've learned and cave to her request. The last time I said yes, she thought she should be able to have candy for snack time for the next week after, and threw a temper tantrum, complete with kicking and screaming, when she didn't get it. Why? Because in giving in that one time, I set the expectation that I would let her do it again. This is exactly what you do when you think to yourself, just this one time and automatically agree to a request. You set an expectation with another person, your boss, your client, your coworker, that you will continue to answer emails after hours, prioritize work above taking care of yourself, work overtime, and jump on another project without having discussed expectations with everyone involved. Now, if it really is only one time, your flexibility in accommodating that request will be noticed and appreciated at work. But most of the time, you will see patterns of behavior that extend well beyond one time. Now, you may be thinking, but if I say no, I won't be perceived as a team player or a collaborative person, which I know is extremely important for career growth. You have an excellent point. This is very true if you don't know how to set clear expectations or say no with purpose. Let me show you what you can do instead to both be a team player and also maintain your sanity. On answering after hours or vacation emails, ask your manager or boss what the expectations are for answering emails after hours or on vacation. This needs to be a very explicit conversation. Many will tell you this is not an expectation if asked. If you are expected to check emails after hours, you need some parameters for when and how long to do this. Ask how they would like you to monitor and document your time spent and how you will be paid for this, either in overtime pay or comp time. That question alone will often result in a change of heart regarding checking email after hours. Set the expectation that you will generally not be checking emails when not at work. In the event of an emergency, your boss, managers, coworkers, or clients can call you directly. Most good managers won't abuse this policy if you've had this discussion. Regarding extra project requests, when presented with a request, do not automatically say yes. Let's think about it a little bit first. If the request will take less than 5 minutes, do it immediately. If it will take more, consider a couple questions before responding. Ask the person making the request to elaborate on completion date and their expectations as to the time it will take for successful completion. Then, consider who is making the request and if this person is someone with the authority to change your work project priorities. And if so, when could you realistically fit it into your schedule? Since you can only actually work on one thing at a time, the whole multitasking thing is a complete myth, which I'll talk about in a blog for another day. What other projects would need to be moved down in the priority list if this new one is really the top priority? Also consider if you are really the only person who is able or available to help. Let's say you don't think you can fit in this request, and it is your direct manager who is asking, who is a person who has authority over your day-to-day activities. Instead of saying, "No, I don't have time to do that," you can say, "I'd be glad to help you on this, and already have a lot on my plate. What other projects can be a lower priority in order to complete this one first?" Do you see the difference between saying no and no with purpose? One paints you as a team player who understands the company's vision and knows how to work with your manager to set priorities, while the other, let's just say you won't be working there long if you develop a reputation for never having enough time to complete your manager's requests. To be very clear, I am not advocating that you say no all the time in your career. Saying yes early and often, especially to challenges that will help you learn new skills, is critical to having a fulfilling career. But we must be very intentional about why we are saying yes, and understand that saying yes to one thing often means saying no to something else, like that lunch break or your kid's soccer game. We must be willing to initiate conversations with our managers to define expectations and priorities. That conversation can be a little bit uncomfortable, especially if you haven't had it before. And we need to consider if saying yes is moving us closer to our career goals or towards frustration and burnout. That's a wrap for 5 things female engineers should not do at work. I'm Stephanie Slocum, founder of engineersrising.com. I'm on a mission to help female engineers achieve success on their own terms. But I can only do that with your help. So I'm going to ask you for a quick favor before you go. If this video has been helpful to you or you think it would be helpful for others, please like it and share it. You might just change the career trajectory of a fellow engineer. Thanks for sharing and watching. Please come visit us at engineersrising.com.